Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books of marketing expert covering Disney Bloodbath, 14% of staff fired at Pixar. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Here's what's going down at Pixar. Disney is cutting 14% of all of the staff of Pixar. Disney has had a lot of cutbacks recently, but this is disproportionate. 14%, it's kind of a lot of people. The main reason they're giving for why they're laying off all these people is that they're cutting back severely on what they're producing for Disney+. They say there will be no new shows for Disney+ from Pixar. I'm sure that's true. I'm sure there are a lot of cutbacks going on at Pixar because they don't want to waste a lot of money on Disney+ content. Of course, it's also because they really damaged and nearly destroyed the Pixar brand. Even Elemental did okay worldwide, did terribly domestically, coming in at just $500 million worldwide. In 2015, Inside Out did like $850 million worldwide, and it did fine domestically. Coco also over $800 million worldwide. That was in 2017, before Disney ruined their brand and scared off all the parents who were concerned about what Disney was showing to their children, because Disney is very big on trying to push what they call a progressive agenda. But it's much worse than that. In addition to this, you have AI affecting everybody in Hollywood right now. They know what's coming. And when it comes to Hollywood, they only care about two things. Well, maybe three. One, themselves. Two, money. Three, ideology. All those things combined, not so good if you're an animator working for Disney, or not so good if you're not a superstar who has a massive personal brand that they can use to get the kind of deal that they want from Hollywood. We have an article from Bloomberg, founder of DreamWorks and also major executive over at Disney, who was in charge of their animation, launching The Little Mermaid and launching The Lion King, and helping to save Disney animation early in the 1990s. Katzenberg has been saying, from what he's seeing from his expertise in animation production, which is tremendous, he expects the cost of big budget animation movies to go down by 90%. 90%, not 9%, not even 80%. 90% because of artificial intelligence. And he expects to see that within 3 years. Maybe it won't be that severe, or maybe it'll take 5 years. But it's definitely coming, and these layoffs only help Disney cut their overhead while they prepare to utilize AI. Coming from Deadline, Pixar reduces 14% of staff due to Disney content spending cuts. And from the New York Times, Pixar lays off 175 workers as it returns its focus to films. The animation studio, which has struggled creatively and at the box office over the past 5 years, will stop making original shows for Disney+. And from Bloomberg, AI will cut cost of animated films by 90%, Jeffrey Katzenberg says. It's unknown really what the effect of AI is going to be on artists, whether they are comic book artists or animation artists. But it looks like since Hollywood controls brands and marketing and distribution and promotion, the effect could be devastating. From the New York Times, Pixar lays off 175 workers as it returns its focus to films. Pixar will stop making original shows for Disney Plus as part of a broader retrenchment, resulting in layoffs that will reduce its workforce by 14%. And 14% really is a massive number. Disney did have a lot of other layoffs, but 14% is straight up disproportionate. It's like targeting and going after the animators. Jim Morris, the president of Pixar, announced the layoffs in an internal memo on Tuesday that was viewed by the New York Times. We also have a full copy of the memo from The Hollywood Reporter. Pixar's president cited the return to our focus on feature films. About 175 employees will have to be let go. Questions about Pixar's health have swirled in Hollywood and among investors since June 2022, when the Disney-owned studio released Lightyear to disastrous results. Lightyear grossed $226 million worldwide. They were targeting something in the $800 million worldwide range. That's a big financial loss for Disney. But here's the question. How could Pixar, the gold standard of animation studios for nearly 3 decades, have gotten a movie so wrong? Especially one about Buzz Lightyear, a bedrock of the Toy Story universe. Pixar's next film, Elemental, had an opposites-attract love story. Arrived to alarmingly low ticket sales in June 2023, but ultimately generated $500 million worldwide. It did better outside the United States, where people are not quite as angry at Disney just yet. Give them time. Disney will not back down yet, so they'll keep upsetting more people worldwide. I still don't think parents trust Disney enough to bring their kids to see a Disney movie in many situations and in many states. And Disney's going to have a really hard time overcoming that because they keep proving they should not be trusted. One problem: Disney has weakened the Pixar brand by using its films to build a Disney Plus streaming service. Starting in late 2020, Disney debuted 3 Pixar films in a row: Soul, Turning Red, and Luca Online, passing theaters altogether. That is another problem that Disney needs to deal with, and it's a real thing. Launching stuff on direct-to-streaming platforms is similar to when they used to release movies direct-to-video. There's a business there, but it is a lower standard, and they have to be careful about damaging their brand even further. Definitely for parents that are on the fence about should they bring their kids to support a Disney movie or go see a Disney movie or buy Disney merchandise, it doesn't help that they lower themselves to not being a theatrical brand. So they are going back to the theatrical brand, but it really won't help enough if they don't go back to producing the kind of things that people want to see, particularly people of both sides of the political aisle. They need to stop being so political. The layoffs reported by The Hollywood Reporter acknowledged another reality. Pixar, like other Disney-owned studios, including Marvel, lost its focus when it was pushed to create original programming for Disney+. At the time, around December 2020, Disney was pouring money into the streaming service in a wild and ultimately unsuccessful effort to attract up to 260 million subscribers worldwide. It had about 87 million at the time. It has about 154 million today. And it is legitimate to say, look, if you're going to push out more content from these studios, you need to figure out how to do that in a measured way, maintain quality. That is true. And producing more than the studio can afford to produce is going to mean extra cost because they're not set up efficiently to produce all that extra content. But at the same time, it's not just about the extra cost. It's not just about pressuring creative executives to do too much material and having them say, okay, here's a lot of average content instead of a lot of excellent content. We all know it's about propaganda, and it's incredible to see how these articles don't mention, yeah, well, Disney has been controversial, and they've made a lot of their customers uncomfortable. And yeah, most of their customers want them to go back to being the old Disney, not the new political Disney. And of course, that affects production tremendously. And now it affects people's jobs. So for all the people pushing this in Hollywood, it's clear who they care about and who they don't care about, because they know this is having a negative effect on their employees. Bob Iger, the chief executive of Disney, has since reversed course, emphasizing cost containment and quality. Less can be more if the standards are high. He has said repeatedly over the past year that the creative teams at Disney were stretched too thin by the streaming strategy. And that's not really a 100% legit explanation, because you would have had feedback that would have gone up the ranks, up to the people that are in charge of each of the divisions that would have easily known, yes, you know what, this is too much for us to do. The division heads at Disney have dealt with this before. They've dealt with having issues with productions and deadlines. They know what their creative people are capable of doing and not capable of doing. This is really the first we've heard now that Disney has been bleeding money so much, losing subscribers, damaging their brands. Having the CEO of Disney even admit, oh, in all of our divisions, by the way, the quality is off in all of our divisions. But our excuse is we produce too much material because for our streaming service. No, that's not actually a legitimate excuse. It's the first that we've heard of this. Even during the days of Disney producing all that content for the streaming service, when they were actually doing the, quote, too much work to do it well, we didn't hear Disney with anybody from the inside or from the outside or any public or private statements, no whistleblower saying, you know what, the quality here really isn't what it used to be. We're doing too much for the streaming service, or we just can't keep up with the pace. We heard nothing like that. So it's a very convenient excuse to say, look, we've destroyed our brands, but it's only because we produce too much volume. Of course, that's not the whole story. As part of the retrenchment at Pixar, a major movie about an 11-year-old boy with autism who was inadvertently beamed into space was delayed. It was supposed to arrive this March. Disney pushed it to June 2025. Pixar's next film in theaters will be Inside Out 2, scheduled for release on June 14th. Which is also interesting because they're getting the layoffs announced just now, getting rid of those people before what they think is going to probably be a success for Inside Out 2. Inside Out 1 did well. Will Inside Out 2 do well? So far, that's completely unknown, except that parents still don't trust Disney. So if parents don't trust Disney, and so many people are not comfortable with Disney right now, it's really hard to see why people would bring their kids to see Inside Out 2. Pixar's original series for Disney Plus included Cars on the Road, focused on the Cars characters Lightning McQueen and Mater. And Doug Days, a series of shorts about the dog from the movie Up. The studio's last original Disney Plus series, Win or Lose, about a co-ed middle school softball team, will arrive later this year. Pixar will continue to make the occasional short film for Disney Plus. And for the people that worked at Pixar, this is the memo they got today from The Hollywood Reporter. Hello everyone, I've spoken to you many times over the last year about our pending move away from series production for Disney Plus, the return to our focus on feature films, and the reduction in our team that would accompany that. That day is here, and while it's not coming as a surprise to anyone, it is one of the hardest changes we've had to make, as it means we will be parting with a number of talented and dedicated colleagues and friends. Today, leaders will begin the process of notifying employees whose positions are being impacted. Calendar invites to speak with a leader have already gone out to those individuals, and we anticipate we will have connected with everyone impacted by the end of the day. I want to assure you that we will be providing extensive support as our colleagues start to transition out of the studio. We are committed to ensuring that their departure is handled with the utmost respect and care at every stage. This is important to me, and I understand how important this is to all of us at the Pixar community. I will host a brief studio meeting via Zoom this afternoon at 5 o'clock to talk more about today's announcement. Despite the challenges in our industry over the past few years, you have all consistently shown up to contribute, collaborate, innovate, lead, and do great work at this studio. I give you my deepest thanks, and for those who will be leaving us, I am hopeful that our paths will cross again, both professionally and personally. Love, Jim. Well, Jim's letting those people go. It's a friendly letter, and the memo needs to go out, but when you work at a company when 14% of the people are laid off, that's a bad scene. So if you didn't get an invitation to speak with your leader today about your future with the company, you're not laid off at Pixar. But for the rest of the employees, it is terrible for morale to have this kind of a mass layoff. And the real threat to the future for animators looks like it's going to be AI. From Bloomberg, AI will cut the cost of animated films by 90%, according to Jeffrey Katzenberg. Artificial intelligence will lower the cost of creating blockbuster animated movies drastically, according to longtime industry executive Jeffrey Katzenberg. And Jeffrey Katzenberg was there at Disney back in the day when they revived animation in the early 90s. The Little Mermaid, The Lion King, all Jeffrey Katzenberg. Of course, he didn't draw them, he didn't act in them, but he was in charge of the division and helped them succeed. He then went on to form DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg and David Geffen. DreamWorks challenged Disney for animation. They also challenged Disney for animators. So Katzenberg really knows the business from a creative side, but also from a production side. He knows the costs, he knows the budgets, he knows the technology. Quote, I don't know of an industry that will be more impacted than any aspect of media, entertainment, and creation, Katzenberg said. In the good old days, you might need 500 artists and years to make a world-class animated movie. I don't think it will take 10% of that, he says, in 3 years from now. And maybe it's not 3 years, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 6.5 years. The adoption of AI will accelerate the digital transformation of the entertainment industry by a factor of 10, said 72-year-old Katzenberg, who rose to prominence as a production executive at Disney before joining hands with filmmaker Steven Spielberg and Hollywood executive David Geffen to co-found DreamWorks. We ought to expect many more cutbacks coming at Disney. 14% here, 25% there. Lots and lots of layoffs in the future at Disney as AI comes into play and people's jobs are replaced with AI, but also as Disney continues to water down its brands. Make them all essentially generic, just pushing propaganda. If you have the same messaging at Pixar as you do at Marvel, as you do at Lucasfilm, what's the point of even having separate studios? It all just becomes schlock. It becomes junk. It becomes what essentially should just be low-budget content. There's nothing wrong with producing low-budget content. I've done a lot of low-budget content myself. You produce that to pay the bills, keep the overhead covered, and make some money. But if you're trying to produce high-quality, important brands, you have to make sure you understand what the brand stands for and that you keep that brand promise to the customer and that you don't try to turn the brand into something else. That takes human beings. That is not something that AI can completely do on its own. But with the direction Disney's going, they may as well make all their films with AI. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.